Okay, we're looking at the slope of a line through 2 points, as you've seen in the lecture that I already gave. That's part of lecture 15, which is in a few parts, but I want to find the slope of a line through 2 points. I want to find the change in y over the change in x. I'm going to use the whole elevator and the building with underground parking work for you. To be clear, some of you will prefer to use a formula. Maybe you learned it before, maybe you just love formulas. And if you do, the formula will work if you're good at the arithmetic of adding and subtracting numbers, predominantly of subtracting numbers that are sometimes positive and negative, but it's your responsibility, if you take on that approach, to learn the formula, to use it properly, to handle the negatives properly. And here's what you must get. By the time it's done, you and I must have an agreement of whether the fraction that you made is negative or positive. And by the time it's done, including reducing the fraction, you and I must agree on what number, whether it's a fraction or an integer, sits behind the negative sign or sits there on its own as a positive number. So if you go for the formula approach, you can look at these, do the formula, and get the same answers I do, including the sign, and then that's fine. But I don't tend to encourage people to watch me use the formula, and then the biggest thing for them is to memorize the formula and use it correctly. And they'll say, oh, that's easy, it's just a formula. So that's why I don't teach it that way, but you're welcome to do that. So here we go. We got to get the change in y over the change in x. The change in y is from 2 to 5. The change in x is from -9 to -2. We have, for the change in y, 0 is down here when I go from 2 to 5. I got a +2, +5, and you can see from 2 I go up to 5, I'll write the plus. 2 to 5 is a short trip because it doesn't go through the 0. A short trip is found by taking the two positive numbers and subtracting. I'm going to get 3. So that 2 plus 3 equals 5. I start on the second floor, I go up 3 more, I'm on the 5th. Now I go to the other one, -9 to -2. Here's where I have my 0. My -9 is down here. My -2 is closer to the 0, but not on the other side of 0. So if I start at -9 and I go to -2, I actually go up. Makes this also positive, and I'm certain it's positive. And now I don't go through the 0, so I don't go all 9 steps up to the 0. I'm going to have to get a smaller number. This is not a long trip, and therefore I'm going to get 9 minus 2, and I'm going to get 7. M equals 3 is positive, 7 is positive. That doesn't reduce, and I'm done. That's how slope goes. We're going to go through the 0 sum. We're going to have 0 sometimes. All that's going to happen, but that's what's going on. Anyone doing it correctly in the end will have positive 3 over 7. Must be connecting the y's on top. Slope is m for mountain and the x is on the bottom, talking about steepness of a line. It'll also give you a positive or negative for going uphill or downhill from left to right. Automatic. 0 to -4. So this is what's going on with my y's. I'm actually starting at 0, ground floor, and I'm going to -4, which is below. To do that, look at my arrow going down, that's negative. How far is it from 0 to 4? Is that a long trip or a short trip? And I do that all the time. Classes always have fun with it. You guys should too. Is it a long trip or a short trip? With 0, it's a little funny. Whether you want to do 4 plus 0 or 4 minus 0, it doesn't matter. You're going to get 4 and you're going to have it right. Luckily, I already have the negative sign up there. It's -4. It's 4 steps down. The other one from 3 to -6. Here's my 0. I start at +3, so I'm actually on the 3rd floor of the building, and I go down to -6, because to get from the 3rd floor underground, I definitely have to go downward. I'm going to put my negative sign right there. Now I'm going all the way down to -6. Let's imagine someone on the elevator with me gets off on the ground floor. I go from 3. First, I go downward 3 to get to the ground floor. Somebody else gets off. I stay on the elevator, and I do an additional add, right? 6 steps down. So I'm going to do the 3 down as well as 6 more down. 3 and 6 are going to get me 9. And therefore, I have m is equal to -4 over -9. What that is 2 dashes in front of 4 over 9. It's the opposite of negative. That winds me up at 4/9. Positive. The slope of that is going to be positive and go from left to right. You can graph it if you'd like, but that is going to be positive, left to right, climbing the hill. I have this one. My y's go from 1 to 3. My x's go from -5 to -6. So I'm going to start with my y's, beginning at 1, which is above 0, and going until I get 3. I'm starting on the 1st floor of the building, going up 2 floors to a higher floor in the building. All the building is above ground. All the parking is below ground. This person had to go up to get that done. Is it a long trip through the 0? It's not a long trip because it does not go through the 0. Therefore, it's a short trip. 3 minus 1 gets me 2. When I do the trip, I use two positive numbers. I either add them for a long trip or subtract them for a short trip. My sign has to be there already about my direction. Now, we had a short trip here when we went from 5 to 2 to 5 or 1 to 3. That's sort of a medium-sized trip, but this was a long trip. This 3 to -6 get me to the ground floor and keep on going. And I wound up with a 9, wound up bigger than either the 6 or the 3 as far as the absolute value of the number I started with. My trip was longer than either of the floor numbers. -5 to -6. So here's 0, ground floor. And what happens here? So we start at -5, we go to -6. We go downward. So we go downward, so I'm ready to put my negative. Is that going through the 0? No. So is that a long trip? Also no. It's a short trip. I go 6 minus 5, I get a 1. M equals 2 over -1. That's a single negative in front of 2 over 1, and that's -2. If you're properly using the formulas, you must get those same 3 answers, and you're absolutely welcome to it. But if you're peeking at the formula or forget it on the day of the exam, that's completely based on the fact that you said, oh, formulas are better than knowing what I'm doing, and then you're allowed to do that. Now Spider-Man gets into play. Let's figure out why. What I have here, I'm going to graph each one. What I have here is from -5 to -5 and from 2 to 3. Right? Now that's the point 2, -5 and then 3, -5. So we got this one, 2 to the right and then down to -5 and then 3 to the right and -5, and here's the graph of that one. Okay. Now the other one that we have that we'll do down here is we're going to go from 4 to 1, and we're going to go from -6 to -6, whatever that means. But anyway, we go from -6, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and up to 4. And then -6, 1, so we go -6 and then up just 1. And this has a couple of options of things that go on that are not completely necessary. But that point where they intersect is going to come up later in the course. The point where they intersect is anything on the blue line is going to have the same value as something. Anything on the red line is going to have the same value of something. I want to take a little look ahead at what that's going to do, then we'll do the slopes for them. Here's what happens. When I put a t-chart together for the blue one, x and then y, I have 2, -5, and I have 3, -5. It's screaming at me something is the same. But it's not saying something is the same. It's telling me what it is as a letter, and it's telling me what the value is. And that is the repeated y equals -5. The actual equation of this line is y equals -5. I call that an oddball line. But let's find the slope of that line. Let me get this a little out of our way here. I guess that could interfere with our slope finding. Y equals -5. From -5 to 0. So here I am. I'm at -5. And I stay at -5. So I don't go up, I don't go down, I just have a 0. And then this other one, 2 to 3. I have my 0 for ground level. Someone's on 2nd floor, goes to the 3rd floor. I didn't even say up to the 3rd floor, but that's +1. So what do we get? We get 0 over 1, and we'll wait to decide what that is. Because the other one's coming, the other possibility. And I don't base it on memorization, base it on understanding what's going on. You could ask your calculator, what's 0 divided by 1, and watch for what it does. It still knows. From 4 to 1, well, here's 0, start up on 4, go to 1. You do go down to 1, we don't go through the 0, so that's a 3. So this is going down, and it's going 3, not 5. If it went 5 stories down, it would be underground, and we didn't get that far because we took a short trip. We took the shortest of possible trips, no trip at all. We go from -6 to -6. Here's our 0. And here we are. We're beginning on the floor -6, and we don't go up, we don't go down, so we make no trip at all. M is equal to the -3 on top of 0. And there's that slope. This one in the t-chart has x's and y's. It's an oddball case, but it's got -6, 4, and -6, 1. It's screaming something out. It's saying every x is negative 6. Therefore, the equation of this line is x is negative 6. 0 over 1. You have nothing and you divide it among one person. Okay, so you still have nothing. That's fine. That's 0. 0 divided among one person, that person gets 0. Slope of this line equals 0. And lots of people could walk on the blue line. Not absolutely everyone, but it takes pretty much 0 effort as far as you don't have to hold yourself back like you're going downhill, and you don't have to climb up a steep hill. Then we got this one. Is there anyone that can climb that? Oh, I see someone raising his hand. Yes, Spider-Man can climb that. Otherwise, it's impossible. But Spider-Man could climb up that with his sticky feet and so forth. Otherwise, no, that's not possible to do that kind of walk. And therefore, what we have is negative 3 over 0 is actually impossible. And a lot of people would say no slope, or they would call that slope undefined. If you ever get to calculus, you'll actually learn that as a limit, something exists called infinity. And the slope of that that's undefined is really it has an infinite slope. And only Spider-Man can do it. So thanks for your help, Spidey. And that's it for this one.